Hi everyone, Trimthony Boy Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for a review of the new FKA Twigs record, Magdalene. Singer, songwriter, FKA Twigs, she's back. New album. Finally, following up her groundbreaking contribution to the world of alternative R&B, LP1, back in 2014. It's been 5 years, and even though Twigs hasn't spent the entirety of that time silent, listeners have been in the dark long enough to not really know where she's going to take her next record. And the experimental R&B wave that Twigs originally rode in on is kind of gone at this point. Not to say the sound and influence isn't still there, it's just that it's given way to so many other things. Now, honestly, I can't say I was too excited to give this new Twigs album a listen, mostly because I found some of the bigger teaser tracks to this record to be underwhelming or unlikable. The track Holy Terrain featuring Future just feels like a really awkward attempt at a commercial crossover, and with loads of producers on it, even though the beat doesn't sound that varied. The Future placements and ad-libs just are not necessary. I cry, I cry, I cry, I cry. And the guy's performance on the track is average at best. You would think that since Future is being given such an unlikely placement on this track, he would pull out all the stops, but no. I do like some passages of the instrumental on this track. I do like Twigs' vocal performance, even though some of the vocal melodies feel muddled in the overly wordy lyrics. And then we have the track Home With You, which had so much potential with its experimental instrumentation, with its Radiohead-ish piano chords. But the way Twigs' vocals are treated on this track, the way they're processed, the effects laid onto them, it's terrible. It's so grating and so distorted. Is there a chorus on this too? It's hideous. Beyond the effects, I like that it sounds as if Twigs is trying to be more expressive vocally on this project, but I just can't stand to listen to this. What's worse is the track works in multiple parts and none of those parts seem to come together. They neither segue into each other effectively, or they just end abruptly and then give way to a new part. By the time the thing ends, it's so unfulfilling, hollow, it's built up little to no momentum, even off the parts that are likable, like that one passage with the gorgeous swell of woodwinds and synth bass. It's so odd this is the only track that uses vocal effects this heavily and the only track structurally that just seems like a total mess. I guess I'm happy that's the case because nearly every other track on this thing I think is good to great. The only other major issues I have with the project, honestly, is Cellophane, which I loved as a teaser, but as a closing track, it just feels so anticlimactic. I mean, what I love about the track is it's so unbearably tragic, with its somber pianos and its hushed, heartbroken vocals, those refrains throughout the track, "Don't I do it for you?" But even though I love the tune, love the lyrics, love many passages of this song, it has a non-ending, which leaves the finish of this album feeling very hollow. And the flow of the record for me, instrumentally and narratively, is not really anything to freak out about either. I think you could arrange these tracks in a few different ways and basically get the same results. I mean, don't get me wrong, Thousand Eyes is very distinctly an opener with a lot of very mystical, curious, and shy vocals and instrumentation, really lures you in. It doesn't give too much away, it makes you want more. It's the ultimate art pop tease. After a great tone-setting intro, the very disorienting Home With You isn't the best contrast. The very sleepy and repetitive but slowly swelling Daybed toward the end of the record doesn't fit all that nicely up against one of the other quietest songs on the album, The Closer, either. I do like the contrast presented in a lot of the lyrics on this track, though. At least in isolation, I think most of the songs on this record are enjoyable. The song Sad Day is a gorgeous track for Twigs with a very clear stylistic pivot. Twigs very much moves away on this track from those subverted R&B grooves and chords off of LP1, and she is firmly housed within art pop territory right now. And pulling from some very specific and obvious places too. Mostly Kate Bush. The sound palette on Sad Day may be cold, futuristic, and dark, but the vocals are Kate Bush all the way. That vibrato, that regal but light tone. Twigs also really laying on her English accent. And the Kate Bush worship on this record isn't entirely a bad thing. I think Twigs embodies the influence well, even if I think it makes this record a tad bit less original than LP1. And even if there is a bit of vocal overlap here and there, I think Twigs arrives at a lot of very different artistic conclusions than Bush ever did, instrumentally, songwriting-wise, lyrically. For example, this track features all of these glitchy, noisy, twittering passages of percussion and electronic instrumentation. A lot of really cool progressions, too. The Kate Bush worship continues onto the track Mary Magdalene as well, although after a somewhat Laurie Anderson-inspired intro, with a very bare and robotic vocal intro that is reminiscent of Oh Superman. What's to come after this, though, is one of the most powerful moments on the entire record. Not only because of Twigs' very dynamic vocal performance, but also because of the beautiful, dynamic, well-structured, and ever-evolving instrumental here. The lyrics are also pretty high impact as Twigs gets, I think, more conceptual here than she is at any other point on the project, with her words dealing directly in the perception of and the nature of women, using Mary Magdalene's story and history to explore these themes in a very smart way. Later, I'm loving the track's psychedelic vocal effects as well as IDM-inspired instrumental passages. It is very Björk, but still tasteful. Meanwhile, the track Fallen Alien is a legitimate banger, and maybe the most out there track on the entire record, if not only for its bright, chilling, and sharp chorus samples and fat bass hits, which kind of sound like something from Kanye's Yeezus. It's very Yeezus. Twigs' vocals at the intro of the song are so freaky and stiff, really embody the feel of an alien trying to emote on a human level. But the singing lets loose, and when I say lets loose, she is borderline shrieking on this track. Her vocals, the instrumental, give off this supremely sinister vibe that I love. I don't think FKA Twigs has proven herself on this album to be the most skilled vocalist. I think a lot of her appeal comes down to weird, breathy gimmicks and strange vocalizations, but still I think she comes off incredibly expressive and very out there on this record in a way that is compelling, beautiful, intriguing. The song Mirrored Heart is another highlight for me. It sets a very bittersweet song against some somewhat awkward, clunky instrumentation, but the lyrics and the writing at the core of all of it are so beautiful and so great that they shine through all of the weird bits of sound orbiting it, and how, again, clunky all of it sounds becomes kind of a selling point, a unique characteristic. Some of Twigs' best material so far is on Magdalene. No doubt about that. For sure, that's what's fueling a great deal of the hype behind this new album, which honestly I think is mostly justified. I like it. But is it Twigs' most consistent record so far? No. Is it one of the most enigmatic or groundbreaking art pop records of the decade? Not really. As special and as stunning as some of the vocals here are, as respectable as the updates on the forms of Björk and Kate Bush are, there are some real duds in this track list here. And again, not that crazy about the flow. There are a lot of great individual tracks here, but as an album, I don't really think this thing is greater than the sum of its parts. I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video for you to check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, FKA Twigs, forever.